A tattered 117-year-old doll covered in nicks is locked away in a glass box, covered in letters and gifts begging for its forgiveness. Tourists of all ages from all over the world gather to catch a glimpse and hopefully, if allowed by the doll, a photograph. But why? What is the story behind this sinister doll that intrigues the masses to this day? Hi! Yes, hello! Welcome back to Coffee Beans and Horror Fiends. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about Robert the Doll. Robert was once owned by a Key West painter and author named Robert Eugene Otto. The horrifying legend that follows Robert the Doll continues to haunt people to this day and influence pop culture. For today's coffee, I'm drinking another Christmas gift. If you're familiar with the brand Hostess, it's the Snowball snack flavored coffee. It's disgusting, but you know what? We're gonna vibe through it. This is why we try things. What I do if I don't like a coffee or it's not something that I drink every day, if it's like a special flavor, I just mix it. I'll mix it into my Folgers. They're K-cups, but I'll just like peel it out of the K-cup and mix it with Folgers or this Joffrey's coffee that I like that I will be talking about in a future episode that kind of goes with the vibe of Joffrey's if you're familiar with Joffrey's. But if for some reason you want to try the Hostess Snowball artificially flavored coffee, I will link it below in case you want to get it as a gift or try it for fun, whatever. Doesn't even like smell good. It's just, I'm gonna drink it, but at least it's in a cute cup. That's enough of that nonsense. Let's get into the horror. The story of Robert the Doll dates back to the early 1900s when a young Robert Eugene Otto, or Gene as he liked to be called, was gifted the doll, who he named after himself, Robert, and quickly became attached to his new friend, even giving Robert his very own room and a sailor suit that once belonged to him. The doll was built in Germany by Steiff Company, the same company that invented the teddy bear. Robert stands at 40 inches tall, stuffed with wood wool known as Excelsior. His facial features were originally painted as a jester because the clown was intended to be a window display piece for clowns. It was truly a one-of-a-kind design. Gene took Robert everywhere, like a true friendship. Robert the Doll seemed to be a positive influence until strange events started occurring. Gene would engage in conversations with Robert the Doll, and a very deep, disturbing voice that his parents explained could not possibly have been Gene responded back to him. Over the years, the interactions escalated. Violent and loud noises would come from Gene's bedroom. Gene's parents would wake up in the middle of the night hearing him scream and call out for his mother to rescue him. When she finally was able to break through the locked door, Gene was terrified. His room was in shambles, and there was Robert at the foot of the bed. And when, of course, his parents wanted an explanation for this, the only words Gene could get out were, "Robert did it." The same words he would use throughout his childhood to explain when something odd or violent or destructive would happen. Nobody knows for sure if these tales were exaggerated or completely fabricated. Logically, we can't fathom a child's toy wreaking this sort of havoc. Maybe Gene was lying. Maybe his parents were also lying about the unusual and inexplicable events that occurred. But it wasn't just the parents. Yes, the parents did make claims that they saw Robert the Doll's expressions changing before their eyes, or that he would mysteriously appear throughout the house. But even if we were to assume they were lying, neighbors claim they saw the same thing. They would witness him moving around the home through the windows. After the neighbors shared what they had witnessed with Gene's parents, they locked Robert up in the attic.
Locked up, they won't let me out. They won't let me out.
Reality check. If homie is a demonic life-size toy, throwing crap all over the house and traumatizing you, your neighbors, and your child, what is locking him away gonna do? This is a paranormal force. A wall and a door in the attic is gonna stop him? Have you ever seen The Conjuring? Actually, that's a really bad example of things being considered accurate, but that's a whole nother video about how the Conjuring universe is completely inconsistent and makes no sense. I'll say what I want about this coffee, but like judging by like the voguing my hands are doing, it gave me so much energy, so we're vibing with it for real. Despite my disbelief, Robert the Doll being locked away in the attic apparently worked. During adulthood, Gene inherited the home he grew up in with Robert the Doll once his father passed, and became a well-known, eccentric artist in Key West, Florida. Despite the horrific experiences as a child, Gene felt drawn to Robert, much to his wife Anne's dismay. She was terrified of him. Gene became obsessed with the doll all over again. He would place it in a chair in the corner of his and his wife's bedroom while they slept. Gene would even paint with Robert by his side. Once again, neighbors claimed to see the doll moving throughout the home. Robert's presence also allegedly caused Gene to have extreme mood swings as well. He would go into an extreme rage to the point of physically abusing his wife, then would claim he blacked out. After being confronted by Anne about the violence, Gene would say, "It was Robert." The strangeness continued and caused even more frustration for Gene's wife. One day, Gene moved Robert from the attic, which he transformed into the doll's room, complete with furniture, toys, and a teddy bear, and moved him to a room downstairs. When Anne asked him why, Gene said that Robert demanded a room with a view. Gene and his doll remained inseparable all the way up to Gene Otto's death. Eugene locked himself away in the attic with Robert by his side until his last breath. I noticed two different stories upon researching Robert the Doll about the events that followed Eugene Otto's death. One story claims that a new family moved in shortly after, and their little girl found the doll. When the young girl, who was 10 at the time, claimed the doll as her own, the same evil that traumatized Robert began with her as well. 30 years later, when this girl is now a woman, still claims that the doll is alive. Then there's the other side of the story, which, according to author David Sloan, who is a successful writer who immersed himself into researching Robert the Doll, claims that no 10-year-old has ever lived in the artist's home and believes that the story is completely made up. Now, the supposed accurate events that followed: a woman named Myrtle purchased the artist's house and did say that she had minor paranormal experiences. She admitted that Robert's expression would change before her eyes, and he would move through the house on his own. She had no issues with the doll until Robert locked her in a room. And after that, because Myrtle is a normal person, she shipped him off to a museum and got rid of him. In my paranormal experience, not that I've had any actual real life paranormal experience, but from watching horror movies, wouldn't the evil still cling to the person or the home? It's not just the object? I don't know. The fact is, she brought him to his current home, the East Martello Museum in Florida. And then a few months later, Myrtle passed away. After Robert was given to the museum, he continued to taunt those around him. Staff members report that Robert's expressions change and that they would hear demonic laughter. Some even claim to have seen Robert put his hand up to the glass. Because of the legend of the doll, he's become a popular tourist attraction in Key West. The legend continues even within his glass case. If you make Robert mad, something bad will happen to you. Visitors to Robert's exhibit are requested to ask permission before taking a photo of him on display. If they don't, bad things may come their way. Sound paranoid? Maybe so, but Robert's display has hundreds of letters from visitors that did not ask permission, and they are begging for forgiveness in these letters. Many claim misfortune occurred after their visit with him. Some ask for advice in these letters, others ask him to curse somebody. Gifts, candy, and sometimes even illegal herbal substances are sent to him, which of course the East Martello Museum does not condone. Do not send drugs to a doll. Thank you. Touching back on the misfortune, it comes in many forms, these visitors claim. Some say car accidents, they've suffered broken bones, illness, divorce. Despite these horrific events, Robert still remains a star in his own right. Even movies have been made about him. However, a common misconception is that the horror icon Chucky was inspired by Robert the Doll. This was debunked by Child's Play creator Dan Mancini. He claims Chucky was inspired by My Buddy Doll and Cabbage Patch Kids. Despite not being an inspiration for this movie in particular, he has been featured in TV shows, books, and even became a meme flaunting America's most famous booty. There are many questions we all have when it comes to Robert the Doll, but there's one question that's sort of the mother of all questions, and I don't think we'll ever have a definitive answer for it. Who gave Robert the Doll to Gene? There are a few theories floating around with not too many details because of how long ago this took place. One theory is that his grandfather gave it to him. Another theory is that a former servant gave it to him after cursing it with voodoo magic. Allegedly, Eugene Otto's mother was extremely cruel to her staff and servants, and the gift was was an act of revenge. While this could easily explain the dark and supernatural nature of the doll, this is not the most likely scenario. According to the author that we talked about earlier, David Sloan, Jean's mother was traveling to the same area of Germany that the doll was made in 1904. So a more realistic situation is that Mrs. Otto purchased it as a gift for her son. Obviously, we sort of touched on the possibility of an angry, vengeful servant who allegedly put this voodoo curse on Robert. Another similar but less sinister theory involves an Otto family caretaker, Emmeline Abbott. Emmeline lost her unborn child, and it was speculated that she used Santeria to attach her lost child's spirit to Robert the doll. An interesting theory that I had heard from Mike Rickensack, I believe his name is. He's from the Beyond the Shadows podcast, which I will link down below, as well as David Sloan's book down below as well about Robert the doll, was that Jean had a sort of telekinesis power, and that power was sort of acting out, and as a result manifested itself in Robert the doll. Some believe that it's just demonic, inhuman entities that possess the doll. I love how it's just demonic, non-human entities, no big deal.
He's not a Christian! Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark's at it!
Ain't no thing. And of course, more skeptical people believe the entire story is a farce. But wouldn't that mean that the museum staff, Taurus, neighbors, Myrtle, visitor to the artist's home, the Ottos, the Otto family's staff, and Jean were all in on the plot? What's more believable to you? Demonic, inhuman things inhabiting a doll, or that everyone was in cahoots? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe for more coffee and horror and arm flailing, apparently.
Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man.
Thank you so much for following along with the Robert the Doll story, and I'll see you on the next one. Stay caffeinated and stay spooky. I feel like if you hear my chair squeak, it's not flatulence, it's just a squeaky chair. Just want to clarify.
Do your chain halo.
Will that get a copyright strike? I have 2 followers. Nobody cares about me or my chain. I feel like because of the cup I've selected today, it's an appropriate time to bring out my prison mic pillow. But look, watch, hold on, let me back up here. Look! Best $15 I've ever spent.